Well, it looks like Mother Nature decided to give us a little bit of an early winter, and hopefully that means early ice fishing as well. So with all this weather coming in, I figured this might be a decent time to do an ice fishing preparation video. Now, I'm not gonna have time to cover everything you need to know to get out on the ice, but I wanna cover down on a few different things you might not have heard of, or maybe a few things that I feel like are extremely important that you don't wanna miss out on. So first things first, we're gonna talk about line. Now, chances are, last year, you probably have a handful of reels that you used and it's got some old line on it. Maybe it's a year or two old. I would recommend stripping that all off like I did with this reel right here and putting on fresh stuff. Chances are there's probably a lot of memory in that line. There's probably some gritty, dirty stuff on it, and that just means that it's old, it's frail, it's been used, and I would get fresh stuff. I can promise you, with less memory in your line, you're gonna catch more fish on early ice this year. Now, what we're gonna do next is I'm gonna quickly show you how I spool up, and I'm gonna use a tactic that my good buddy Brett McComas recently did in one of his target walleye videos, and that is using a bowl of water. Now I'm gonna show you how that's done. All right, so I just ran the line through the guides of the rod, and I'm gonna put it on the reel now. What I like to do is I like to tie a little bit of a knot. Now the reason why I didn't show you this on camera is because you're not gonna be able to see 2-pound test line anyway of me tying it, but all I did was do a couple overhand knots, nothing special. And then what I'm gonna do is center it up on the spool like so, and just lay, that's gonna be hard for me to show you on the camera, but just lay a little piece of electrical tape on there so that the line is not slipping while I spool it up. So simple enough. You guys can see the bowl right there. I just drop the line in there and reel it up. You don't have to deal with any spools. Get it a little wet. It's nice and warm water, and what the warm water actually does is sort of condition the line as it's going onto the reel. So there you go. Now, just like that, you got some fresh monofilament or fluorocarbon or whatever you choose to use. You got some fresh line on your reel. This stuff is not gonna coil. Now, what I put on here is actually 2-pound Northland Bionic Ice Fluorosilk. I'm actually a big fan of this line because it sinks. Now, it's specifically, this is a fluorocarbon coated copolymer, and basically what that means is that it has the sinking qualities of fluorocarbon, but it handles a little bit more like mono. Now, fluorocarbon is getting better and better every year, and it's handling better, but this stuff, the copolymer, is still gonna handle just a little bit better. I'm a big fan of that line. I will also say, I would recommend just spooling up on a separate reel, braided line. Now, I usually keep a couple spools with braided line in my bag because on certain days, sometimes when it's warm, or maybe when I know I'm fishing at a shack, or also when you're fishing really deep water, it's nice to have the no stretch capabilities of braid. And actually, might be tough to see, but I have a tiny little swivel on here with the fluorocarbon leader attached as well. So I keep a few of these in my bag. I would recommend you do as well. And it's super simple with these new Northland ice fishing rods. You don't have to deal with tape. You just go like that, twist it off, pull off the reel, and whoa. If I can get my stuff together here. This one's got a little bit of a bigger deal. There we go. Screw the other one on. If you're not clumsy like me, you could probably do it in about 10 seconds. Now, staying on the topic of line, I will say that I have a bunch of line inside my bag over there. In addition to the line, I have scissors. Obviously, you're gonna need scissors for a number of reasons when you're fishing. I have pliers, and obviously this is good for predator fish, but if I'm fishing for panfish, I have a little toothpick deal to stick it down in their mouth if they happen to eat a jig real deep. Stick it down, twist it, pop it out. You're gonna save a lot of panfish lives by using a little toothpick like that. In addition, I have a jaw spreader. in case I catch a big pike and I need to work on it because it ate it deep again. So it always pays to have one of these handy. It takes nothing to store, to throw in your bag. Electrical tape. I used electrical tape earlier to spool up that reel. And yeah, I would just recommend having a little bit of electrical tape with you no matter where you go. Just throw it in your bag. It's not a big deal, but it's really nice to have it in some situations. And something that has potentially a million different uses is this foldable knife. Now there's a lot of different foldable knives. I kind of like this one because it's got some serrated action there, so I could saw into something if I need to. You know, whether you're somewhere where chumming is legal, cutting up chum, fillet fish on the spot. I mean, there's a million different reasons why you might need a knife, but make sure it's foldable so that it's easy to store inside your bag. And last but not least, I would have a bunch of these guys. Now, this is essentially just a little storage unit where you could put minnows, you could put waxworms. Actually, I was digging through some of these, and here's one I was using last year. It has some waxworm bedding. So I would have as many of these as you can as well. I would keep one in your bag, keep one in your pocket. All right, now we're gonna jump into the topic of lures. Now, of course, all of you have your all-time favorite lures, stuff that you've been catching fish on for years and years. You know, for a lot of people, obviously, that's gonna be a buckshot spoon, tried and true lure for catching walleyes, perch, crappie, etc. But what I like to do every single year, sorry about the commotion, what I like to do every single year is test out new lures. And one lure that I got to test out last year was the Fire Belly spoon. Now, I gotta get back into that box. What's cool about the Fire Belly spoon is that it's a lot like that buckshot, but you can put a little glow stick in there. So what you do is you crack the glow stick, like to give it a little shake, and you can slip it right into the body of the spoon. Now this is a really, really cool bait. I especially like it in low light conditions. Fire Belly spoon, check it out, that's a good one. Next up is another newer bait that you might want to check out if you haven't already, and that's the eyeball spoon. Now this is a great bait for walleye, but where I really like to use it is when I'm chasing perch. For whatever reason, perch just seem to love that eyeball profile. I'll tip it with a minnow head or some larva, and yeah, this thing is one of my go-to perch baits. Now sticking with the smaller species, another bait that I really like, not just for perch, but also for crappies and bluegills, is the tungsten punch fly. Now I've been using this bait a lot, especially this last ice season, and I am a big fan for a few reasons. First and foremost is the fact that for the most part, I feel like you don't need to use bait when you're using this particular lure. And when I say bait, I mean waxworms or larvae, etc., because the hand-tied hackle, as you'll see, is honestly enough to draw them in and get them to bite in a lot of situations. In addition, it's tungsten, so it drops pretty quickly and it straightens out your line so you can fish it really precisely. And yeah, I'm just a big fan of this bait. I've had a great hookup percentage with it, and yeah, I'm a big fan of not having to mess with bait if I don't have to. So that's a really, really good option. In addition to that, new for this ice season, the Rattling Puppet Minnow. Now, these are two of my favorite colors right here, pink and fire tiger, but yeah, this has been a really good bait. I got the chance to use it a little bit at the end of last ice season. It was very productive for me. It's kind of, you know, a lot of the different minnow baits, like the traditional puppet minnow, is it's got a lot of darting action as you're jigging vertically. You know, it'll dart over here and over here and over there. But one thing that it doesn't have, besides the hook clacking against the body, is there's not a lot of sound. So when you put in the rattles like this, not only do you have the erratic action, but you also have a little bit of sound to call them in as well. And this is also a pretty good open water bait. You'll notice that it doesn't have a front hook, and so that makes it a really good option for casting. And also, when you're ice fishing, that front hook is often the hook that ends up getting snagged up on the bottom of the ice. So removing that was a good call. The rattling puppet minnow, I'm a big fan. Now another thing that you're gonna wanna do right now, because you're not gonna wanna do it later, is get your tackle storage dialed in. Now you're gonna wanna grab a storage system like this for your panfish jigs. It's kind of nice to have them all stored like that. I don't know how a lot of you are storing your jigs right now, but in addition to that, I like to keep my hard-bodied baits inside just sort of a standard tackle box like this. But one thing that I like to do is use rubber bands for the rip and shad like this. I will tie the two trebles together with a rubber band or wrap them together. And then for my puppet minnows, what I like to do is pin that treble hook up against the belly of the bait using a rubber band and taking the rubber band and wrapping it up around the back treble of the bait. And what that does is makes it extremely easy for me to dig in and grab different baits from my tackle box. Now I can dig all the way down to the bottom here and pull out Fire Tiger. I can grab pink. Now the only thing that does sometimes happen is sometimes the nose will still grab, will still grab like the rubber band or something like that. So it's not 100% perfect, but actually for the lipless crankbaits, it works extremely well. They come out really easy, but I'd also recommend doing it with the puppet minnows because it does help. All I do is store that in a tackle box and it's good to go. Now on the plastic side of things, I'm a big fan of the containers that the Impulse plastics come in, and the reason why I like them is because you can stack them together. So all you do is just screw it off and pick out the plastic you need, and then you can screw it back together like so. And I can get into the bottom one if I want, get into the top one, and what I'll do is I'll actually store like kinds of plastics in each of these containers. So right here I got my bloodworms, and in this one I have my mayflies, and I have my skeleton minnows right here. And just a little hint, those are my 3 favorite panfish plastics. So that's how I store it. And one thing I will also say is when you buy a single container of these plastics, they come in one color. But what I like to do is I like to grab a handful of them from a few different colors, maybe 3 colors, and I will put them in one container. So I have a good variety of colors to choose from without having a bunch of containers to worry about. So right here, I got my 3 favorite, and what I'll do is I'll just throw this in my jacket pocket or throw it in my bag, and it's easy to store, it doesn't take up a lot of space, and I'm all rigged up with my panfish plastics. Well, that about wraps things up for this video. Hopefully you picked up 1 or 2 things that might help you catch a few more fish out on early ice, or at least be a little bit more efficient while you're out there. So unfortunately, we didn't have any ice fishing action in this video, but I promise you, once the lakes lock up and it's safe ice, I'll get out there, I'll get some good ice fishing content for you, so keep your eyes peeled for that. If you learned something in this video, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below, and yeah, keep your eyes peeled for more ice fishing videos in the future. Until then, I will see you later.